The galaxy was old, older than most species could imagine. For 12,000 years, the Volanthi Collective had ruled the Orion Arm with wisdom and care. 17 different species worked together under one flag. They had mapped every star. They had counted every planet. They believed they knew everything worth knowing. They were wrong. Ambassador Kethri stood in the Great Hall of the High Council. His scales shifted from blue to gray as worry filled his hearts. Before him, a hologram flickered with static. The image showed a small yellow star surrounded by 8 planets. The third planet was blue and green and white. It looked peaceful. It looked harmless. But the ancient records told a different story. "This signal came from the Sol system," said High Coordinator Velmesh. Her voice was heavy with fear. "A research vessel broke the quarantine. They sent this message before we lost contact." The recording played. A scientist's voice filled the room, shaking with terror. "They are here. They were always here, waiting. We woke them up. The old warnings were true. Do not come for us. Do not answer this signal. Forget we existed. For the love of all that lives, stay away from—" The message ended in static. Kethri felt his blood run cold. He had served the council for 200 years. He had seen wars and plagues and disasters, but he had never heard such fear in anyone's voice. "What is the quarantine?" asked a young delegate from the Mirthkai species. "Why was Sol marked as restricted?" Velmesh closed her 4 eyes. "We do not know. The quarantine is older than our written history. Older than the history of any species in this room. Our ancestors left only one instruction: do not go to Sol, do not contact Sol, do not acknowledge Sol, pretend it does not exist." "But why?" the delegate pressed. "Because something lives there," Kethri said quietly. "Something that scared our ancestors so badly that they tried to erase all memory of it." The council fell silent. On the hologram, the blue planet turned slowly. Clouds moved across its surface. Oceans sparkled in the light of its sun. It looked so small, so fragile. Then the image changed. The research vessel's final transmission showed something rising from the planet's surface. Ships, dozens of them. They were ugly things, built from metal and fire. They had no grace, no elegance. They looked like weapons given form. But that was not the terrifying part. The terrifying part was how they moved. They accelerated at speeds that should have killed any living crew. They turned at angles that should have torn any ship apart. They moved like they did not care about the laws of physics. They moved like they did not care about anything at all. "What are they?" someone whispered. Kethri watched the ships grow larger on the screen. In his chest, something ancient and primal began to scream. It was a feeling his species had not needed for millions of years. A feeling from a time when they were prey instead of explorers. It was the feeling of being hunted. "They call themselves humans," Velmesh said. "That is all the old records tell us. That is all our ancestors wanted us to know." The council erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted over each other. Some demanded war fleets be sent. Others wanted to flee. A few simply sat in stunned silence, their minds unable to process what they had seen. Kethri did not move. He watched the hologram as the human ships approached the research vessel. They did not fire. They did not communicate. They simply surrounded it, like predators circling wounded prey. Then they vanished. The research vessel vanished with them. The signal died. "We have to do something," a delegate cried. "We have to respond." "Respond how?" another shouted. "We do not know what they want. We do not know what they can do. We know nothing." Kethri stepped forward. The room slowly fell quiet. His scales had turned pure white, the color of deep thought among his people. "We know one thing," he said. "We know our ancestors were afraid. These were beings who crossed the stars, who conquered every challenge the universe could offer. And when they met the humans, they chose to run. They chose to hide. They chose to forget." He looked around the room at his fellow delegates. Species that had mastered gravity in time and space. Species that had lived for millions of years. All of them looked like frightened children. "Whatever we decide," Kethri continued, "we must understand one truth. We broke the quarantine. We made contact. Whatever comes next, we cannot undo that. The humans know we are here now. The room was silent. On the hologram, the Sol system sat quiet and still. The blue planet continued its endless rotation. The yellow sun continued its ancient burning. Everything looked peaceful, but Kethri knew better. Somewhere in that system, something was watching. Something was waiting. Something was making plans, and soon, very soon, it would come for them. He thought about the research vessel, about the scientists who had died because they were curious. They had wanted to understand why their ancestors were afraid. Now the whole galaxy would learn the answer. Kethri looked at the blue planet one last time. Such a small world, such a fragile-looking species. How could they have scared the Ancient Ones so badly? He had a feeling he would find out soon. The galaxy was old. It had seen empires rise and fall. It had survived wars and disasters and the death of stars. But it had never faced anything like humanity. And humanity was awake. 3 months passed. The galaxy held its breath. Commander Yethal stood on the bridge of her warship and stared at the empty space before her. This sector had once been filled with pirate ships, criminal fleets that had terrorized the outer colonies for centuries. They had been a constant problem, impossible to destroy, too fast to catch. Now they were gone. "Report," she ordered. Her second officer trembled as he spoke. "The station is intact, Commander. Power is running. Life support is active. Food is still warm in the kitchens. But there is no one aboard. 3,000 pirates lived here. They are all gone." Yethal felt ice in her stomach. Signs of battle? None. No weapons fire, no blood, no bodies. They simply vanished. She ordered her crew to search the station. They found nothing useful, just empty halls and silent rooms and the remains of meals that would never be finished. The pirates had not fought. They had not fled in their ships. They had simply stopped existing, but they had left messages. On every wall, in every room, in dozens of different languages, the same words appeared. "They are coming. Run." Yethal stood before one of these messages. The paint was still wet. Whatever had happened here, it had happened recently. Very recently. "Commander," her officer called, "we found something else. A recording." They played it on the bridge. A pirate captain appeared on screen. He was a Krethvor, a species known for their violence and cruelty. But in the recording, he looked like a scared child. "If anyone finds this," he said, "know that we did not surrender. We did not run. They gave us no choice. They appeared from nowhere. Their ships made no sound. Their soldiers felt no fear. We fired everything we had at them. Everything. It did nothing." The captain paused. His hands were shaking. "They did not kill us. That is the worst part. They just took us. They said we would be given trials. Fair trials. They said we would be treated with dignity, with respect." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Monsters would have been easier to understand. Monsters we could fight. But these humans, they smiled at us. They offered us food and water. They treated our wounded. Then they put us on their ships and took us somewhere else. They said we would have a chance to become better. The recording crackled with static. "I have killed hundreds," the captain whispered. "I have burned colonies and stolen children and done things that would make you sick. And they looked at me like I was someone worth saving, like I could be redeemed." His voice broke. "What kind of creatures are they? What kind of beings show mercy to monsters?" The recording ended. Yethal stood in silence for a long time. Around her, her crew waited for orders. But she had none to give. She had trained her whole life to fight enemies. She had never trained to face something like this. Far away in a different part of space, Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her quarters aboard the UES Perseverance. She was reading old files, old histories, stories that humanity had tried to forget. 10,000 years ago, humans had left Earth for the first time. They had been young and eager and full of hope. They had expected to find friends among the stars. Instead, they found fear. The galaxy had taken one look at humanity and seen something terrifying. Not because humans were strong, many species were strong. Not because humans were smart, many species were smart. It was something else. Something in the way humans refused to give up. Something in the way they bonded with anything and everything. Something in the way they looked at impossible odds and smiled. The ancient species had called a council. They had decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist freely, not because of what humans had done, but because of what they might do. So they built a barrier, a wall of energy that surrounded the Sol system. They trapped humanity inside and erased all records of their existence. Then they flew away and tried to forget. For 10,000 years, humanity grew alone. They fought wars among themselves. They nearly destroyed their planet. They made mistakes and learned from them. They evolved not just in body, but in mind and spirit. And they never stopped trying to break free. Elena closed the file. She had read it many times before. It always made her feel the same mix of anger and sadness. Her ancestors had been imprisoned for a crime they had not committed. They had been punished for the fear of others. But humanity had not grown bitter. That was the strange part. 10,000 years of isolation, and they had emerged not with hatred in their hearts, but with purpose. "Captain," her first officer called over the intercom. "We have arrived at the coordinates." Elena stood and walked to the bridge. Through the viewport, she could see the border of collective space. Beyond it lay a galaxy that had forgotten humanity existed. "We received another distress call," her officer reported. "A Valanthi border station is requesting assistance. Some kind of pirate attack." Elena smiled. It was a small smile, but her crew knew what it meant. They had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "Set a course," she ordered. "Maximum speed, and open a channel. Let them know help is coming." Her officer hesitated. "Captain, we are not supposed to make contact yet. The protocols—" "Someone is asking for help," Elena said simply. "That is all that matters." The Perseverance turned and accelerated. Behind it, 100 other ships followed. Humanity was returning to the stars, and this time they would answer every call. Ambassador Kethri stood in the docking bay of Threshold's Edge Station. His heart beat fast. His scales had turned pale gray. Behind him, a dozen guards waited with weapons ready. They all knew it was pointless. If the humans wanted them dead, no amount of guards would matter, but it made everyone feel better to pretend. The human ship had arrived 6 hours ago. It was an ugly thing, all sharp angles and exposed metal. It looked like it had been built by people who did not care about beauty, people who only cared about function, about surviving. Now a shuttle was approaching, small, unarmed, carrying only a handful of passengers. "Remember the protocols," Kethri said to his guards. "No sudden movements, no aggressive postures. We do not know what might provoke them." The shuttle landed with a gentle thump. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened. Kethri had studied the old records. He had seen images of humans, but nothing had prepared him for seeing one in person. She was small. That was his first thought. Smaller than almost every species in the collective. Her skin was soft and fragile. She had no scales, no armor, no natural weapons. She walked on 2 legs, slowly, carefully, like she might break at any moment. But then he looked into her eyes. They were brown, those eyes, a common color across many species. But there was something behind them that made Kethri's instincts scream. Something old and patient and utterly without fear. She looked at him the way a predator looks at prey it has already decided to spare. "Ambassador Kethri," the human said. Her voice was warm and friendly. "Thank you for meeting with us. I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Perseverance." She extended her hand. Kethri knew this gesture from the old records. It was a greeting, a sign of peace. It meant she was showing she held no weapon. He took her hand carefully. Her grip was gentle but firm. Her skin was warm, almost hot by his standards. Humans ran at higher temperatures than most species. Their bodies burned with constant energy. "Captain Vasquez," he said, "welcome to collective space. I must admit, we did not expect your arrival." "I know," Elena said, "and I know you are afraid. Your whole species is afraid. Everyone who remembers the old stories is afraid." She smiled. It was a strange expression, showing teeth. Among most species, showing teeth was a threat, but there was no threat in her eyes, only warmth. "I want you to know that we understand," she continued. "What your ancestors did to us was wrong. They imprisoned our entire species for 10,000 years because they feared what we might become. They never gave us a chance to prove ourselves. Kethri felt shame wash through him. His scales darkened. Captain, I cannot apologize for what happened. I was not born yet. My species was not born yet. But I am sorry. What was done to your people was unjust. Elena nodded. We know. And we have had 10,000 years to decide how we feel about it. Fear gripped Kethri's hearts. And how do you feel? Sad, Elena said simply. We feel sad. So much time was lost. So many things could have been different. We could have been friends. We could have explored the stars together. Instead, we grew up alone. And you grew up afraid. She looked around the docking bay, at the guards with their weapons, at the fear in everyone's eyes. We did not come here for revenge, she said. We came because we heard a distress call. One of your research vessels needed help. We could not ignore it. The researchers are dead, Kethri said quietly. Our scanners showed their ship was destroyed. Elena shook her head. No, they are alive. We rescued them before their ship failed. They are on our medical vessel now receiving treatment. 3 of them were badly injured, but they will survive. Kethri stared at her. You saved them? But they violated the barrier. They invaded your space. They were curious, Elena said. Curiosity is not a crime. And even if it was, we would not let people die for it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. A hologram appeared, showing the 3 researchers resting in medical beds. They looked tired but alive. One of them was even smiling. They asked us to send a message, Elena said. They wanted their families to know they are safe. Kethri did not know what to say. He had prepared for many things. Threats, demands, accusations. He had not prepared for kindness. Captain, he finally managed, I do not understand. After everything that was done to you, why would you help us? Elena looked at him with those strange, terrifying, gentle eyes. Because someone had to, she said. Because the universe is dark and cold and full of dangers. Because every species we have met is alone and afraid, waiting for someone to help them. She stepped closer. Despite himself, Kethri flinched, but Elena only placed a hand on his shoulder. We are humans, she said. We do not know how to ignore a cry for help. We never learned. We probably never will. So when we heard your people calling, we came. Her smile widened. And now we are here, and we will help you, whether you want it or not. Because that is what we do. That is who we are. Kethri looked into her eyes. He saw the predator there, the ancient hunter that made his instincts scream. But he also saw something else, something warm and fierce and impossibly kind. He finally understood why his ancestors had been afraid. It was not because humans were dangerous, it was because humans cared. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. News of humanity's return spread across the galaxy like fire. Some species celebrated, others prepared for war. The Krethvor Dominion did both. The Krethvor were warriors. They had built their civilization on strength and conquest. For thousands of years, they had been the most feared military power in the collective. No one challenged them. No one dared. And now these humans had appeared, making the galaxy soft with their talk of mercy and kindness. The Krethvor High Command found this disgusting, unnatural, dangerous. They decided to send a message. The colony ship Hope's Journey carried 50,000 human civilians, families, children, elderly. They were traveling to establish a new settlement in unclaimed space. They had no weapons. They had no military escort. They were innocent in every way. The Krethvor fleet found them in open space. 30 warships surrounded the defenseless vessel. Admiral Kethrak stood on his bridge and smiled. Open a channel, he ordered. I want them to see who kills them. On the colony ship, Captain Marcus Chen watched the Krethvor fleet approach. His crew was panicking. His passengers were screaming. Children were crying in their mother's arms. He had no way to fight. He had no way to run. He had only one option. He pressed the emergency beacon. 3 seconds later, the universe changed. Admiral Kethrak never saw what hit him. One moment, his fleet was in position, weapons locked on the colony ship. The next moment, every system on every ship went dark. Weapons offline, engines dead, communications silent. In the blackness of his bridge, emergency lights flickered on. Kethrak saw shadows moving. Impossible shadows. Things that should not be there. Then a light shone in his face. A human stood before him, a small, fragile-looking creature in black armor. She held a weapon he did not recognize. Around her, more humans appeared, moving through his ship like ghosts. Admiral Kethrak, the human said. Her voice was calm, pleasant. My name is Commander Sarah Chen. You just attacked a ship carrying my father, my mother, and my 3 younger siblings. Kethrak reached for his weapon. It was not there. He did not remember dropping it. Here is what is going to happen, Commander Chen continued. Your entire fleet is now disabled. 112 human soldiers have boarded all 30 of your ships. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are dead. Your communications have been blocked. She leaned closer. You have killed no one, and so we will kill no one. But this ends now. Across the galaxy, the Valanthi High Council watched in horror as reports came in. The Krethvor fleet, the most powerful military force in the collective, had been neutralized in 3 hours. Not destroyed, neutralized. Every ship captured, every soldier disarmed, every system disabled. The humans had not used their main fleet. They had not used heavy weapons. They had sent 100 soldiers, 100, against 30 warships and 10,000 Krethvor warriors. It had not even been close. Ambassador Kethri stood before the emergency session, reading the human message aloud. To the collective and all species within it, 3 hours ago, the Krethvor Dominion attacked a civilian vessel carrying 50,000 humans, including many children. No humans were harmed, no Krethvor were killed. We have disabled their fleet and detained their personnel. They will receive fair trials under human law. He paused, his voice shaking. This is our only warning. We came to help. We came in peace. We showed you kindness and mercy and asked for nothing in return. The Krethvor answered by trying to murder our families. The council hall was silent. We do not want war. We have never wanted war. But if any species threatens our people again, they will learn what humanity is truly capable of, and they will learn it quickly. Kethri lowered the message. His scales had turned pure white. There is one more part, he said quietly. A personal note from their captain. He read the final lines. To the children of the Krethvor. We know you did not choose this. Your leaders attacked us, not you. We will not punish you for their crimes. When this is over, we will help you rebuild. We will teach you better ways. We will give you the same chance we give everyone, the chance to become better than you were. High Coordinator Velmesh spoke into the silence. They destroyed the Krethvor fleet in 3 hours. Then they promised to help the Krethvor children. Yes, Kethri said. They could have killed everyone. They could have burned the Dominion to ash. Instead, they captured them alive and offered them mercy. Yes. Velmesh closed her eyes. And that is supposed to comfort us? Kethri thought about the question. He thought about Commander Chen, who had boarded an enemy ship to avenge an attack on her family, and then taken prisoners instead of lives. He thought about Captain Vasquez, who had saved researchers who had violated human space. He thought about the pirates, relocated instead of executed. No, he finally said, it is not supposed to comfort us. It is supposed to teach us. Teach us what? Kethri looked at the hologram showing the disabled Krethvor fleet. 30 warships, the pride of a warrior civilization, reduced to floating metal in 3 hours, and not a single death on either side. That we never understood what we were dealing with, he said. We thought humans were dangerous because they could kill us. We were wrong. They are dangerous because they could kill us, and they choose not to. Every single time, they choose not to. He turned to face the council. That is not weakness. That is strength we cannot even imagine. The galaxy had witnessed the 3-hour war, and for the first time in 12,000 years, it understood what true power looked like. 1 year had passed since the humans returned. Ambassador Kethri sat in his office on the station now called Threshold's Hope. Through his window, he could see human and Valanthi ships flying side by side. He could see construction drones building new habitats. He could hear laughter from the shared recreation areas where children of different species played together. The galaxy had changed, and he was still trying to understand how. The pirates were gone, not killed but rehabilitated. The humans had done something no one else had ever tried. They had asked why people became pirates in the first place. They had found poverty and desperation and fear. They had built hospitals and schools and housing. They had given the outlaws jobs and purpose and hope. It had worked better than any weapon. The HFY Dominion still existed, but it was different now. Human advisors worked alongside their government, teaching strange ideas like democracy and rights and justice. At first, the HFY had resisted. They were warriors. They did not need help. But then they saw their children laughing in human schools. They saw their wounded healing in human hospitals. They saw their society becoming healthier and happier with each passing month. Now many HFY called the humans friends. Kethri still remembered the first time he saw a human adopt an orphaned Valanthi child. The little one had lost her parents in a pirate attack years ago. She had lived in a government facility, alone and afraid. A human couple had visited the facility. They had seen the little girl hiding in a corner, her scales gray with sadness, and they had asked to take her home, not because they had to, not because someone ordered them, simply because they saw a child who needed love, and they had love to give. Kethri had watched the adoption ceremony. He had seen the human mother hold the Valanthi child close, stroking her scales, whispering promises of safety and warmth. The child's scales had slowly turned bright blue, the color of joy. That was when Kethri finally understood. Humans did not see species. They did not see aliens. They saw people, living beings who could laugh and cry and hurt and heal. And wherever they found suffering, they tried to help. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. A message appeared on his screen, a priority alert from the long-range sensor network. Kethri opened it and felt his heart stop. An SOS signal. From beyond collective space, from a region no one had ever explored. The signal was weak and broken, but the meaning was clear. Someone was calling for help. Kethri immediately opened a channel to the human embassy. Captain Vasquez appeared on screen. She looked tired but alert. "Ambassador," she said, "we detected the signal. We are already moving." He blinked. "Already? But I just received the alert." Elena smiled. It was the same warm, terrifying smile he had come to know so well. "We have faster sensors. We heard it 3 minutes ago. The Perseverance and 4 escort ships are en route. We should arrive at the signal source within 12 hours. "But you do not know what is out there," Kethri said. "It could be a trap. It could be hostile. It could be anything." "It could be," Elena agreed. "But it could also be people who need help. We have to find out." Kethri shook his head slowly. "After everything your species has been through, after 10,000 years of isolation, after being attacked by the HFY, after facing fear and hatred at every turn, you still rush toward danger to help strangers." Elena's smile softened. "Ambassador, do you know why our ancestors named our first starship?" "No. They called it Hope, not because they believed everything would be easy, not because they expected the universe to be kind. They named it Hope because they refused to believe the darkness was all there was." She leaned forward. "We spent 10,000 years trapped in our solar system. We could have become bitter. We could have spent that time building weapons and planning revenge. Some of us wanted to, but most of us chose differently. We chose to become better. We chose to be the kind of species we wished we had met among the stars." Kethri felt something warm spreading through his chest. It took him a moment to recognize the emotion. It was hope. "And now," Elena continued, "someone out there is calling for help. Maybe they are dangerous. Maybe they will fear us like everyone else does. Maybe this will end badly, but we will never know unless we try." She stood and straightened her uniform. "We are humans, Ambassador. We do not ignore cries for help. We do not leave people alone in the dark. That is not who we are. That is not who we will ever be." The channel closed. Through his window, Kethri watched the human ships accelerate toward the unknown. They flew in perfect formation, bright and fast and full of purpose. He thought about everything that had happened since the humans returned. The fear, the wonder, the slow realization that the galaxy had never faced anything like these strange, stubborn, beautiful creatures. When humanity arrived, the cosmos had fallen quiet, not because everyone was afraid, though many were, not because the humans had conquered anyone, because they had not. The galaxy fell quiet because, for the first time in 12,000 years, it had something to think about, something to hope for, a better way. Kethri watched the human ships until they vanished from sight. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between stars, someone was calling for help, and humanity was answering. They always would. He smiled and his scales turned bright blue. The cosmos was no longer quite so dark, and it was not quite so cold, because somewhere in the endless night, a small, fragile, impossible species was flying toward the unknown. Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to help. And that made all the difference.